Hello and welcome to Giant Mess, a sloppy sports and entertainment talk show that covers a little bit of everything, from the New York Football Giants to the New York Baseball Mets, movie reviews, TV show reactions and recaps, and some funny stories and life lessons mixed in for good measure. I'm your host. I am a giant mess, the real cinch, Neal Lynch. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley. The tag deadline approached rapidly at 4 p.m. on Tuesday, March 7th, 2023, year of our Lord. The Giants had some tough decisions to make. A lot of negotiations coming down to the wire, and they pulled off nothing short of a miracle. We kept our boys, and that's what's important. So we're going to dive into the details of each contract, what it means for the salary cap, how these contracts compare to other players at that position around the league, and look ahead at the draft, the NFL Combine, what this means for current players on the roster and whatnot. And then we'll look at a movie I like to call Triangle of Sadness. Why do I like to call it that? Because that's the actual title of the movie, Triangle of Sadness. And we'll talk about some life stories along the way. So without further ado, let us get it started. Joe Schoen, GM, General Manager, Joe Schoen, pulled it off. He achieved what I would say the vast majority of Giants fans were hoping for. I know myself personally, I was hoping for this outcome. And that was, let's sign our boy, DJ, Danny Dimes, aka now Danny Dollars. He got a serious upgrade in the finance department. His economics through the roof. We got him signed to a fairly reasonable deal, unless you're a hater, of which there are many. And that allowed us, and why was that important? Because it allowed us to place the tag on Saquon and keep him around for another year because, hey, we love him. And I'd like to see him close out his career with the Giants. Who knows if that happens? But what a pivotal offseason. What a pivotal year. Now, can you imagine? We don't get this deal done with Daniel. We have to place the tag on him because that was the thought process going into this. You know, we don't sign him. We got to put a tag on him. And if we put the exclusive tag on him, that's like, according to what I saw from Lamar Jackson's negotiations, that would have put us at $45 million, which is like, hey. And then we could put the non-exclusive tag on him, which would place him around, I think, at $32 million, which is what's happening to Lamar Jackson. We'll get to that in a little bit. But can you imagine? We don't get a deal done. We got to put the tag on him, and then we had to let Saquon enter free agency. And I don't have the graphic in front of me. I probably should have pulled it up, but that's our duo right there. That's how we win games. It's Danny and Saquon, Barkley and Jones, 8 and 26. That's how we win games. One without the other, we don't win games. Odds are we don't win games without those two, that two-headed monster. So I'm really glad that we were able to lock them up, at least for 2023, the both of them. And who knows how things go. I mean, you want to talk about in the span of a year, how things can change. We had declined Daniel Jones' fifth-year option before the 2022 season because we just didn't see it. We had a new GM, new head coach. They both came in. They said, I don't know that we've seen enough, from an outsider's perspective for us to say, yeah, let's do a fifth-year option, which would have been this upcoming 2023 campaign. And then what a difference a year makes. Daniel stays healthy, plays all 16 games or 15 games. He sat the last game because we didn't want him to get hurt for the playoffs. Took us to the playoffs, won a playoff game. And now he's got a 4-year deal worth $160 million, which is an average annual salary of $40 million a year, which I think when we initially saw that price tag, we all clutched our pearls and for good reason. Cause we at the quarterback position, we hadn't seen that price tag in 4 years. last time we had a quarterback with a big contract, Eli Manning, I think he tapped out at like 20 some odd $million, $25 million. Inflation is a real son of a bitch, folks. I don't know if you've been paying attention outside of the sports world, just the general economics and economy. We're experiencing inflation. And this is like, I think, the prime example of that. And we'll get to how his new contract ranks in terms of annual average salary, total value, all that stuff in a little bit. But that's just the state. You want to talk about the state of the union. This is the state of the quarterback union right now. This guy, if you look at the other quarterbacks making what he's making, he's kind of right there with them if you just take 2022. And as much as people don't want to take into consideration the previous years of his tenure so far, the Giants win more with him in the quarterback. And you could say, well, we've had shitty backup quarterbacks, and you wouldn't be wrong. But he's coming off his best season, completed 67% of his passes, over 3,000 yards passing, which I guess nowadays you're like, okay. 15 touchdowns, 5 picks in 16 games. Rushed for over 700 yards, 7 touchdowns on 120 rushes. And he cut down his fumbles. He's cut down his fumbles. He's cut down his interceptions. He's done what we've wanted him to do and what we've asked of him to do. And I'm all for this. I had a friend who's an Eagles fan say, what a great day for NFC East fans who aren't Giants fans. It's like, okay. You probably said the same thing when Dak Prescott signed his contract, because at that time, Dak, like $40+ million for Dak Prescott, who won one playoff game. I don't even know if he had won the one playoff game at that time, but we're like, this guy. And then, you look at what you're getting now. He led the league in the interceptions while playing 10 games, 12 games. So, no one has a crystal ball. We get that. No one can predict the future, but this is a good gamble. And I like this risk. There's no reward without risk, right? High risk, high reward. This doesn't feel that high risk. We're not giving him a Patrick Mahomes contract where it's 10 years, friggin' almost $500 million. And a lot of people were comparing what Daniel Jones was asking for, the AAV, to Patrick Mahomes' AAV. And it's like, but Patrick Mahomes is getting 10 years worth of security and a tremendous amount of guarantees. So if you're just going by AAV, yeah, I guess he's asking for the same AAV, but it wasn't across the same length of the deal. There's a bunch of ways to look at it and a bunch of ways you can chop it up. So, I was not getting him. I had no, and I know this is probably why I'm such a shitty content creator, because I don't get in the mix, and I don't know how to shit talk or trash talk or anything like that. But to me, it's like a lot of sound and fury signifying nothing type of thing, where it's like, we can talk until we're blue in the face, and pretty much everyone did. Every time I logged on to Twitter, it was like people arguing over Daniel Jones and the contract is worth his value. And it's just like, dude, one of 3 options. We sign him, we tag him, we let him walk. And I'm going to let the chips fall where they may. I was in the camp of, let's sign him. Do I want to sign him to $45 million a year? No. $47, $48 million a year? No. But the Giants were valuing him at what the current value is for a Ryan Tannehill and a Kirk Cousins. And I'm saying to myself, well, he just beat Kirk Cousins in the playoffs, and he's younger. He's younger than Tannehill. So it doesn't seem as far-fetched as people are making it out to be. And then Derek Carr signed with the Saints, and we can get into that contract in a little bit. And I was like, huh. And then Geno Smith signed his contract with the Seahawks, and I was like, huh. I was like, it doesn't seem that far-fetched that Daniel Jones, because I think when we were first talking about the market value for Daniel Jones, SpotTrack had him at like 32 or 35 million for AAV, average annual value. And I was just like, all right. I mean, it's a high number. And when we compare it to what Eli Manning was making, who took us to who won 2 Super Bowls for us. Yeah, that's more, but it's also the year 2023. And when Eli retired, it was 2019. It was 4 or 5 years ago. And shit's changed in 4 or 5 years. So for the AAV to work out to be 40 million, I'm completely fine with that. You know, it puts him in the same range as a Dak Prescott, and I honestly think that he can be better than Dak Prescott, to be frank. And I know, you know, I'm biased, so of course I'm going to say that, but I just see him making more plays and having a better decision making, especially this year. I mean, I just think he's not turnover prone and making smart decisions and making some really unbelievable throws. You know, I think at first blush, you're like, oh, wow, that's a nice throw by Daniel. And then you play it back and you see the all 22 and then you see the coverage and you see the space he's dealing with. And you're like, wow, that's actually a friggin' elite throw. So he's 25. It's a 4-year deal. It's not a 10-year deal. And it seems like most of the guarantees are coming in the first 2 years. He's got $35 million in additional incentives, which I'm all for incentives. I love incentives. $82 million are guaranteed over the first 2 years, I guess. And this is where I get a little, I don't believe the reports, because it's like 82 million over the first 2 years, but the first year cap number is 19 million, which means that 63 million is going to count to the cap in 2024, which is not great when we're thinking about possibly trying to re-sign Saquon Barkley, or extend Saquon Barkley, you know? So I think it's a good deal. I think it is, because you're not only looking at where he is currently in terms of, you know, he's now in terms of as contracts go in that top 10. And while a lot of people probably, you know, I can say this for a fact, nobody sees him as outside of Giants fans. Nobody sees him, experts, PFF. A lot of people don't see him as a top 10 quarterback currently. That's not, I mean, 2022 went a long way in saying, okay, if he can do this every year for the next 4 years, we're going to be in a really great spot, because it's not, you know, he won us a lot of games, fourth quarter comebacks, game winning drives, with his feet, his arms, his brain. Imagine how many more games we could win if we just had the complementary pieces, the supporting cast, which we didn't have in 2022. Somewhat better line, I guess, in 2022, right? But, you know, talk about the wide receiving core, losing Tony, not having Galladay, Shepard's gone, Wandale's gone. I mean, you're talking about the top 4 or 5 receivers just out. And he still was able to put up the numbers he did, lead him to the playoffs, win a playoff game. Now you get him players around him, and who knows? Maybe he does become officially, across the board, according to everyone, a top 10 quarterback. That's the hope, and that's the plan, and that's the vision. And dude, you know, we're talking about rebuilding, right? The rebuild. This is the rebuild. The rebuild isn't okay. We finally made the playoffs, and we finally won a playoff game. Okay, let's just get rid of our core parts. That's not the rebuild. We're talking about the rebuild. It was supposed to be a rebuild year. We make the playoffs in year 1 of a rebuild. It's pretty damn good. And I know other teams have gone worst to first and whatnot, but I don't know that those were necessarily rebuilds. So, I mean, 25-year-old quarterback, 26-year-old running back, both arguably, I will say that, Saquon's not arguably, he was a top 5 running back last year. And Daniel, you know, if you go into advanced analytics, you could make the case that he was, at the very least, a top 15 quarterback. And we'll get into this when we look at the contracts. You look at the top 15 contracts, quarterback contracts, they're all, you'd be shocked if you're not familiar. So I thought we would take a look at Derek Carr's signing with the Saints because I think that was the first chip to fall, if I'm correct, if I'm right. So he signed with the Saints. He was released by the Raiders on Valentine's Day. Heartbreaking. He's 31 years old. So he's got 6 years on Daniel Jones. And in 9 seasons with the Raiders, 35,000 plus passing yards, 200 plus touchdowns, almost 100 picks, 63 and 79 and 142 starts. And this motherfucker right here got a 4-year, $150 million contract that includes $100 million in guarantees. $70 million effectively fully guaranteed with $60 million due at signing, another $10 million in year 3 vesting after year 1. And the Saints kind of, this is where I think the salary cap is a hoax. It's just like, it's a myth. The Saints have like their third least amount of cap space. They're almost $30 million over the cap. So, and the Saints are just magicians when it comes to the salary cap. I don't know how they do it year in and year out. But they got Derek Carr, and now you got to think NFC South with Tom Brady retiring. And if he does unretire, he's not going to come back to the Bucs, I don't think. It looks like he might go to the Dolphins. Or there's a rumor he'd go to the Dolphins. But the Panthers, maybe, they have a pretty good defense. They kind of turn it around after the McCaffrey trade. So the NFC South is kind of wide open. And with Derek Carr now, you feel like the Saints might have a shot. Then we look at Geno Smith. Comeback player of the year. Kind of bullshit. Saquon should have won. Pro Bowler. League high 70% completion rate. 4,200 passing yards. 30 touchdowns. 11 picks. But he's also, 30 some odd years old, I think. Geno Smith age. 32. 3-year contract worth $105 million. So he's in that $30+ million AAV. Base value of $25 per season, $40 million guaranteed at signing, $28 million he'll earn in the first year, and $30 million worth of incentives. So before this year, no one would say, yeah, sign me up for that deal. No Seahawks fan would be like, yes, to that Geno Smith contract. No one. But he flipped the script in 2022. Derek Carr has a decent track record, Pro Bowls, whatnot. I don't know that he's really done anything in the playoffs or has really done anything in the playoffs, but he's getting a big contract. So Jones has a bigger contract, but he's 6 to 7 years younger. We might look back 4 years from now and be like, that was a fucking steal. Jones we might get to the point where Jones is asking for to renegotiate his contract after year 2. Which, you look at Patrick Mahomes and his AAV and you're thinking, who knows what he's thinking? He's seeing Dak Prescott and Daniel Jones getting $40-45 million a year, equivalent to what he's getting. And he's like, I know this half a bill's cool, but it's cooler than half a bill, a full bill. And then we'll look at Lamar Jackson, right? Here's another interesting case where negotiations hit a wall and the Ravens placed the non-exclusive franchise tag on him. It's going to cost Baltimore around a little over $32 million in 2023, and they'll have until July 17th to reach a multi-year extension. What's interesting about the non-exclusive franchise tag is that Lamar is able to negotiate with other teams in free agency. And so if another team does decide to make an offer that beats that price tag, $32 million a year, the Ravens can then have 5 days to match it or bow out. And if they bow out, they get a pretty good haul in return, I think. A couple picks, first round picks. I don't know if I got to talk about this in a previous episode, but I really thought that Atlanta would be a great fit because they had a lot of cap space. I don't know that they're that pumped about Mariota. I think they benched him when he was like a healthy scratch, which was kind of odd. And I don't know that Desmond Ridder is the guy, right? Or maybe they think that they could just overpay for Lamar for 3-4 years. And by the time that contract's done, Ridder is ready to assume the throne. I don't know. But, Lamar is playing hardball. And I know Daniel Jones played hardball, it came down the wire. And it was freaking some people out. But Lamar's playing some serious hardball. Turned down a contract that would exceed Russell Millions, $49 million per year, which, Denver's got to be like pulling their hairs out. Or should I say pulling their manes out, thinking about that contract that they're tied up with Russell Wilson, although he was hurt. Who knows? A healthy Russell Wilson, maybe it's different. I don't know. Although he's in some hot water now. Who knows how that affects his play or whatever with the charities and whatnot. And Lamar wanted guaranteed money in line with Deshaun Watson's fully guaranteed $230 million pack with the Browns, which I think most people would agree is a little out of control. And we'll get to that in a bit. But he won, Lamar won the MVP in 2019. That year, he led the league in passing touchdowns and set a QB single season rushing record. But last 2 years, not so great. It's had like diarrhea and all that great stuff. So who knows where Lamar ends up? I don't know. That's a lock. He'll play for Baltimore. So if we look at the total value of quarterback contracts, current quarterback contracts, you have Mahomes at $450 million total value. Josh Allen's at number 2 at $258 million. We have Russell Wilson at $242 million. He signed that at age 33, and it's 5 years long, and he'll be an unrestricted free agent in 2029. Denver, how you doing? Kyler Murray, $230 million contract. Outrageous. Deshaun Watson, $230 million. Dak Prescott, $160 million. Matthew Stafford, $160 million. Daniel Jones, $160 million. So, yeah, we've got Daniel Jones at the same level as Dak Prescott and Matthew Stafford. Keep in mind, Matthew Stafford signed this contract after winning a Super Bowl, but he's 34. He signed it at age 34, which will take him to age 38. And I don't even know what the fuck is going on with the Rams with Sean McVay taking a leave of absence, Aaron Donald talking about retirement. So they could be saddled with a big contract for a quarterback that's like, what am I doing here? I already won the Super Bowl. So the total value of Daniel Jones' contract exceeds Aaron Rodgers' contract. And I know that might initially shock and awe some people over in Iraq, but Aaron Rodgers is 38 years old, multi-time MVP, NFL MVP, 38 years old, 30-year contract. But you look at some of the contracts below Daniel Jones and you're like, yeah, I guess that makes sense. Matt Ryan's 32. He did not look great last year for the Colts. Derek Carr ended up getting released. We just talked about his contract with the Saints. This is a bet. It's a future, if you will, if you're into gambling. It's a future on Daniel Jones. And the Giants think they have good odds. They really do think that you look at the ages on some of these contracts, right? No one's saying that Daniel Jones is as good as Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen. He played better than Russell Wilson last year. He played better than Kyler Murray last year. I didn't really follow a hell of a lot of Deshaun Watson last year, but I'm willing to say that he played better than Deshaun Watson. Dak Prescott stunk. Matthew Stafford hurt. Aaron Rodgers missed the playoffs. Matt Ryan benched. Derek Carr released. So, hey, I'm just looking at the numbers and I'm looking at performance from 2022. Now, I know it's a small sample size. It's just one season. A lot, crazier shit has happened. So let's take a look at the average annual value. Aaron Rodgers is number one at a little over $50 million. Okay. And he's now at the point where he's like, has to do ayahuasca on a retreat to decide whether or not he wants to return to the team. Russell Wilson's at number 2 at $48.5 million. Kyler Murray at number 3 at 46. Put it this way, Giants fans, because I'm not talking to any other fans because the other fans won't get it. I'm talking to the Giants fans. Would you rather have Kyler Murray or Daniel Jones? Kyler Murray appears to be, from an outsider's perspective, considering what has been reported, a bit of a headache to the point now where they understand, the Arizona Cardinals understand that they are kind of stuck with him. And they're now looking for a coach and people that can work with him as opposed to, the other way around. Deshaun Watson, $46 million AAV. Patrick Mahomes, 45. Josh Allen, 43. Dak Prescott, 40. Matthew Stafford, 40. Daniel Jones, 40. So that's the hope, right? The hope is that Daniel Jones takes that next step and can become a Josh Allen. I didn't watch a ton of Buffalo Bills games this year, but I will tell you, I'm glad that Daniel Jones doesn't do what Josh Allen does a hell of a lot of the time, which is turn over the ball in huge, crucial scoring opportunities in the red zone, in opponent's territory, positive drives, momentum, shift, fumble, interception. It happened a lot this year. And I guess you could use the excuse that Josh Allen was hurt and probably should not have been playing. A lot of guys wouldn't have played with his injuries. Okay, fine. I'll buy that. But that's the hope, that Daniel Jones can take that next step and become Josh Allen-esque, right below Josh Allen, which would be phenomenal. If he could be Matthew Stafford, I'm telling you, I think he's, I know I'm biased, I think he's better than Dak Prescott. There are reports that Jalen Hurts is going to try and ask for and command $50 million a year. And Eagles fans, I don't know that they've fully grasped that yet. And I think coming off, if the Eagles won the Super Bowl, they would have hand over fist handed him that contract immediately. He lost the Super Bowl. He fumbled. And that was the difference in the game. Sorry, not sorry. Let's be honest here. If he doesn't get hit and fumbled and that's returned for a touchdown, that's a different outcome, right? Who knows if the Eagles get back to the Super Bowl? They have some cap issues right now. I don't know that they're not going to be able to bring everyone back. And so they might not ever get to the Super Bowl again. But you're going to pay Jalen Hurts $50 million a year? Okay, cool. Have fun with that. So I personally am fine with this. If you get, it's a big if, but if you get Daniel Jones from 2022 and he continues to perform at that level and maybe even takes a step each year, just take it. And we're not talking about giant leaps each year. We're just talking about steps. Hey, this year, let's throw for a little more yardage. Let's throw for a couple more passing touchdowns. Let's win 2 playoff games. If you can get that incremental improvement each year, by the time we get to him being an unrestricted free agent in 2027, we're going to be like, should we re-sign our franchise quarterback who took us to the NFC Championship and has been in the playoffs 2 or 3 years in a row? That's a tough one. So, yeah, I'm completely fine with this contract. And it is bizarre that like people were okay with, and I'm the same way. Like 32 is okay, but 40 is not okay. And likewise, I was saying like 40 is okay. In my head, I was like, I guess 40 is okay. And then when they were saying like 47, 48 million a year, I was like, okay, like it's getting a little out of control. And you're starting to hamstring the team's ability to operate and to really compete. And that's what I've never, and I will never understand about professional athletes, especially football players, especially quarterbacks, is, and I think I had this gripe to a certain extent with Eli Manning as well, because I've seen Tom Brady do it where he takes pay cuts and the team's able to actually compete and sign guys that are needed, is to sacrifice just a little bit. Okay, so you're not the highest paid player at your position. Is that going on your tombstone? That's why I never understood, and maybe this has to do more with agencies and agents than it does the players themselves. But my God, if I it's hard, I can sit here and say if I were in their shoes, I would never do that. And it's like, I'm never going to be in their shoes. But God damn, you just got to think, I'm a big legacy guy. And so to me, I've always thought it's cool to play for one team and one team only, like Eli Manning, win a Super Bowl for that team, like Eli Manning. And you're forever held at for the rest of your life. You're just held as this. And that's why, like, not to get off topic, but Jacob deGrom, I was like, that's just a stupid move on your part. Like, what the contract, once you get to that level of wealth, and it's like, holy fuck, man, how much more money do you need? For what? Like, you want to set up your kids, okay. You want to set up your kids, okay. You want to set up your kids, like, okay. 5 million is really going to be the difference. 20 million when you're talking about hundreds of million. Like, it just, I don't know. It's just, it's interesting. But then you have the other side of the flip side of the coin that says, look at how much money these fucking franchises are worth and are making. And what this player is making is a drop in the bucket. And they deserve more, because look at how they're putting their life on the line. Look how much they put butts in the seats. They are responsible for all the jersey sales and the merchandise and the blah, blah, blah. Equally understand that. But if we're talking about a difference of 10%, 20%, I don't know. It's tough for me to fight for that when it's like, hey, Daniel, if you sign this contract at this level, this will allow us to re-sign Saquon Barkley, and we'll be able to allow us to sign XYZ to help you be better. It's a team sport. Anyway, rant over. So if you look at like total value rankings, this is a metric from Spot Track, but I thought it was interesting. I don't even know what goes into it, but Jalen Hurts has his total value score is 98.65. And that's because his average annual value is $1.5 million, dude. I don't think anyone on this list made less other than Davis Mills. His contract his AAV is slightly higher than Davis Mills. Holy shit. Anyway, number 2 is Joe Burrow, also on his rookie contract. Lamar Jackson, who is still on that weird, it was like a rookie contract, and then I guess they had him franchise tag last year. Now he's got the that crazy tag this year. And then you have Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. Those guys lived up and played to their contracts. And I think that was that's probably is a big reason why a lot of Giants fans are hesitant about handing out a big contract, because you look at the number of guys that play up to that contract, and it's not a lot. It was basically Mahomes and Allen. Geno Smith was playing on a low contract. Tua, rookie contract. Daniel Jones, rookie contract. Justin Fields. Daniel Jones was 8th in terms of total value playing on his rookie contract. Justin Fields was 9. Herbert 10. I mean, now you got all these jackass fans that are like, Daniel Jones making $40 million a year. Justin Herbert's about to make 60. It's like, go to the playoffs and win a game, dude. Justin Fields, go to the playoffs. Trevor Lawrence, went to the playoffs, won a game. He's probably due for an upgrade in the contract department. Andy Dalton at number 12, playing on a very veteran backup quarterback type contract. But, when Jameis got hurt, he had to step in. Tom Brady at 13. You get the next big contract you get to is Kirk Cousins at 17. Kirk Cousins went 14-3, 13-4, something like that. Record number of game-winning drives and fourth quarter comebacks. And yeah, they lost a playoff game, but at the same time, there was 17 in total value. He's making $35 million a year. You have Marcus Mariota. Next up is Jared Goff. Detroit Lions had a hell of a year. Probably should have made the playoffs if the ball bounces a different way. And he's making $33.5 million a year. Missed the playoffs, though. And then you have Tannehill, which everyone likes to compare Jones to, at $29.5 million a year. Dak Prescott, $40 million a year. Lost in the playoffs. Kyler Murray, $46 million a freaking year. Aaron Rodgers at $50.2 million a year. I would be furious if I was a Cardinals fan, having Kyler Murray at that level and knowing that you're hamstrung with this quarterback who's become a headache, or a perceived headache. Who knows, inside the locker room, inside the clubhouse. So yeah, I don't mind the Daniel Jones contract. I like it. I don't think it's crazy over the top. I think it rewards him for what he did in 2022 and says, okay, go out there and do your thing. Keep at it. And if you can get just about a full season's worth of starts out of him, you're probably going to make the playoffs. Probably. And that's because the other domino in this chain fell in our direction the right way. Saquon Barkley, because we got the deal done with Daniel Jones, we're able to place the non-exclusive franchise tag on Saquon Barkley, which means he'll earn a little bit over $10 million in 2023. This is not uncommon. The Raiders placed the same tag on Josh Jacobs, who is right up there with Saquon Barkley in terms of production, at least in 2022. And then Tony Pollard. A lot of people say that Tony Pollard is better than Ezekiel Elliott. And so he gets the same tag. When we look at the running back average rankings, right, in terms of average annual value per year, you have McCaffrey at 1 at 16 mil, Kamara at 2 at 15 mil. Ezekiel Elliott is tied for second at 15 mil. I mean, this is like Dalvin Cook, $12.6 million at number 4. Derrick Henry, $12.5 million at number 5. Nick Chubb at 12.2 million at number 6. Joe Mixon at who knows what happens with Joe Mixon after what the latest going on with him, $12 million. Aaron Jones, $12 million. So the market value for Saquon, I believe, was $12.5 million a year. And he said he scoffed at that. And I think that was the ceiling for the Giants. They were like 12.5. And he came back and he said, no, I want the Alvin Kamara deal. I want a deal that's on par with Ezekiel Elliott. And it's like, I mean, I don't know. Kamara's got some legal issues going on. And Elliott, obviously, I mean, in my opinion, call me crazy, he's not living up to that contract. Christian McCaffrey, when healthy, the reason why McCaffrey and Kamara are getting those kind of dollars, and Cook to a certain extent, is because of their threat, and they're a threat in the passing game. They can run, but they're also a threat in the passing game, which is why Elliott was a little bizarre, because it's like he's not as great in the passing game. And I guess I can say this now, but Derrick Henry on the trading block, Nick Chubb on the trading block. Those are two guys that are playing at the top of their game, that are performing at the top, have numbers that are put them at the top of the league, and are on the trading block. And it's because of their contracts, and it's not because of their production. I mean, the Green Bay contract for Aaron Jones was wild. I think they just restructured it or something like that. So you look at the total contract value, Elliott's number 1 at $90 million. I think, in retrospect, in hindsight, would Cowboys fans sign up for that again? No. Kamara, if he wasn't going through all this crazy shit with the legal issues, maybe $75 million total. McCaffrey at $64 million, and McCaffrey was kind of a game changer for the 49ers after that trade. They went basically undefeated, I think, for the rest of the season, maybe one loss over the course of the final 10 games, something like that. But you can see without a quarterback, the running back is kind of rendered useless. Not useless, but I mean, think about how many teams have been able to go far. I guess you could say the Titans with Tannehill, right? And Derrick Henry. Dalvin Cook, $63 million total. Dalvin Cook kind of disappeared. I mean, the Vikings kind of fucked that up in the wild card game, and in the regular season, right around Christmas time against the Giants. It's like, just run the ball. We stink against the run. Yeah. So what does that non-exclusive tag mean? We kind of touched on it with Lamar Jackson, but unless another club makes an offer, the Giants are unwilling to match. He'll be a New York Giant. Now, if another interested suitor does make such an offer, New York would receive 2 first-round picks from said team. 2 first-round picks, which is pretty cool, but I don't see anyone giving that up. Paying unless Barkley has some kind of personal vendetta against the Giants for not giving him that contract that he wants and just wants to stick it to them, I don't see him leaving. for anything less than what he was asking, which was around $16 million a year. So only 26. He rushed for a career-high 1,300 yards, scored 12 touchdowns on the ground, added another 338 through the air, which I thought we could have done more with him in the passing game. Hopefully we will in 2023. We can also work out a long-term. This now gives us a little more leash, a little more runway, a little more breathing room. We have until July 17th before Barkley signs the tag to work out a long-term contract. So who knows what changes in that time frame? Say we make a splash and we're not gonna make a big splash in free agency, but say we make some really nice moves that offensive line, bolstering that, improving that in free agency and the draft, and we turn to Barkley and we say, hey, yeah, we could offer you $16 million a year, and you could have a year like 2020 or 2021. Or you can sign for $12.5 million a year for 4 years, and we'll get you a ring, motherfucker. So looking at the transaction history for Barkley, April 2021, we exercised the $7.2 million option for 2022. His rookie contract was 4 years, $31 million, fully guaranteed with almost a $21 million signing bonus. So, he's made some good money so far. And I know it's not, there's like some crazy obsession with players to be like, oh, I'm the highest paid. I just don't know. Like at your Hall of Fame induction, is that on the bust or is that on the graphic that they put up, behind you? Oh, he was the highest paid running back in 2024. Who gives a fuck? I guess I'm not one to speak because I have extremely low self-esteem. I don't negotiate contracts. I just oh yeah, that's cool. You can pay me that. And these people are confident and they know their worth, they know their value, and they feel slighted when they don't get it. And to that degree, I understand. But at the same time, it's like, think, and I know you think you're getting hosed and you think it's awful that the owners get all the money and all. I get that. I understand that. But and the team probably pitches this to him ad nauseum, and the player, it's probably like white noise to the players at this point. But it's like, think about continuing the rest of your career with this team and winning a Super Bowl. You will become a friggin' legend, and you can live off that legend status for the rest of your life. Don't you think that Tiki Barber wishes that he didn't retire after 2006 and just stuck around for 2007 and got that Super Bowl ring and then could retire? What would life be like for Tiki Barber if he did that? I have a feeling it would be better. Who knows how much better, but I feel like it would be better. So I know that's the pitch, and that pitch, I don't think that pitch works with players anymore. But fuck, man, and that makes me old school. And that's why I am what I am right now. But, if in terms of the cap hit for 2023 for, Barkley, he's the 10th highest paid running back. He's the 6th highest paid player on the New York Giants roster. And he should be the 2nd highest paid. I get it. Derrick Henry, who's 29 years old, is on the trading block. He signed a 4-year, $50 million contract with the Titans at age 26 in 2020. And I'm bringing this up because Henry and Chubb both signed their most recent contracts at the same age that Saquon Barkley is, 26 years old. Henry's contract, when he signed it in 2020 at age 26, included $12 million signing bonus with $25.5 million guaranteed with an average annual salary of $12.5 million. He'll earn $10.5 million in 2023 and carry a cap hit of over $16 million with a dead cap value of $10 million. He's going to be a free agent next season. And when he hits the market, his value is 2 years, $30 million, almost $31 million with a $15 million annual average salary. I don't know that teams are going to pay that. He's going to be 30. But is he like, is he like Adrian Peterson in that he has legs beyond that age 30 year? I mean, age 30 years is like the year that, that was the year that Tiki started talking about, like, all right, I'm just going to wind it down. I think Tiki was like 21 when he was drafted in 97 and he retired in 2006. So he played, 10 plus seasons. Yeah. So 30, 31 is usually when they start to think about winding it down. Very few running backs can be productive after that age. Although, with modern science, modern technology, Riggy So Nick Chubb, here's another one. Signed a 3-year deal worth $36.6 million. The Browns at age 26, $12 million signing bonus, $20 million guaranteed, average annual salary of $12.2 million. And in 2023, he'll earn a base salary of $10.85 million, carrying a cap hit of $14.85 million and dead cap of $10.86. He's going to be free agent in 2025. So you say to yourself, if you're Saquon, and now we're going to look at it from Saquon's perspective, well, what the fuck? These contracts were signed, years ago, and I'm at that same age, but you're going to give me the same amount, but we're now 2, 3 years, 4 years down the road. I should be getting more than that. Oof, it's tough. I don't know. I have a weird, I'm not a very optimistic person, but if we can get the Jones thing figured out, which we did, and we can say to Barkley, hey, look at how great you guys are together. We really think we got something here. Look at what we did in year 1. Imagine what we can do in year 2, 3, 4, 5. I think that we get it done, despite everyone being like, they're so far apart. I mean, how many reports did you see like that on your timeline? Which is like, we're so far apart on contracts. Okay, yeah. All right. So what does that mean for our cap? So this is not real time up to date, but it was, I think SpotTrack had us at $33 million over the cap after the Barkley tag. So that does not take into account Daniel Jones, AAV. But if the reports are true and only $19 million goes against the cap this year, 33 minus 19, it takes us to $14 million over the cap. The NFL draft signees, that's an estimated value of about $10 million against the cap. So now we're looking at $4 million. But then there's been like confirmed reports from Shefty that the Giants are going to release Kenny Golladay on March 17th, St. Paddy's Day, no less. Oh, luck of the Irish. So that will add another $7 million to our cap space. I mean, I don't know. I guess it sucks. It is crazy that June 1st we would have saved another $7 million. I think it would have been if it was after June 1st. But I think they just want to cut ties cleanly, and then we'll just figure it out from there. I mean, it's a testament. It just shows you how badly they want him off the team. They're willing to take that much of a hit. So yeah, we're looking at maybe $11 million in available cap space after the NFL draft, after releasing Kenny Golladay, after the Jones contract is factored in. Is that enough to get us a free agent? I personally would not want to spend all that on one free agent. I'd like to see us spread the wealth and do 2 free agents. I think if we can get 2 free agents at that to take up that price, that would be ideal. I don't like to put all my eggs in one basket, but that's who I am. And look at where I am in life. Oh, so sad. What can we do to free up more space? Well, we talked about this before. We could restructure Leonard Williams again. He had already converted almost $18 million of his 2022 base salary into a signing bonus in September of 2022 and added a void year. Adoree Jackson, I guess, could we restructure him again? He had already converted almost $10 million of his 2022 salary into a signing bonus, adding a void year. Will we want to go down that road again? Or would you want to possibly cut Adoree Jackson? I know some people have been floating that around the internet, and it's like, yeah, he has a cap hit of 19 million. We could save 9 million, and we have a dead cap of 10 million, but I don't know that. Do you have a lot of faith in our secondary? I mean, some guys made some strides, I guess. We saw some good flashes of talent from like Cordell Flott and whatnot, but I don't know that we don't have the kind of depth just yet to indicate that we can cut ties with Dory Jackson. So I think we try to restructure him again, maybe. I don't know. I don't know what the statute of limitations is on that. And Graham Gano, do we restructure him again, or do we cut him and save less than $3 million? He had already converted almost $3 million of his 2022 salary into a signing bonus and adding a void year. So, those are some possibilities. I think the most likely candidate, I guess, is Leonard Williams, because he is still eating up a ton of friggin' cap. We could also extend Andrew Thomas and Dexter Lawrence. I know people have been pushing for that hardcore. And by doing when we extend them, you could then backload the contract, so that frees up some room for this year and next year possibly. So I think we're in a good spot. I think we're like, in terms of the 2023 season, I think it's nice having that kind of security and stability, knowing that, okay, we got our two guys back. We know we can win when they both stay healthy. How do we get them to stay healthy? Well, we get them an offensive line. We bolster the offensive line. We add some weapons, some targets, so we don't have to depend so much on Saquon Barkley and lean on him so much. And I would be, barring injury, right? Because that always is a factor. If people are staying healthy and playing 13, 14 games or more, starting 13, 14 games or more, I'm talking specifically about Jones or Barkley, we're going to the playoffs. That's just a fact. So yeah, I think we're in a good spot. Now, when we look at the future in the NFL draft, I'm not going to get too deep into it now, but I did watch, I guess not really watch, but casually followed the NFL Combine. The NFL Combine, in my mind, is like the ultimate have it on in the background while you're doing other things program. It's like, I'm not paying very close attention to it, but it's just nice to have on. It's very chill, very casual. Every once in a while you hear like, oh, and then you look up from whatever you're doing and you check it out. For me, it was Darnell Washington making the one-hand grab. The tight end prospect from Georgia, who's like 6'8", 6'7", and can move. And he made everyone look like D3 prospects. On the sled, he just casually moved the sled 10 yards in like a second. Everyone else is struggling with it. And then he makes that one-hand grab. And I was tempted to be like, I know we need an inside linebacker, and I know we need wide receivers, and I know we need secondary help. But should we draft Darnell Washington with the 25th pick if he falls to 25? And what does that look like, in terms of that's a pretty cool combo to have, Belly and Darnell. Belly is already considered, I would say, a fairly average tight end one, but he did miss he missed some games with injury, and then he had to compensate for the injury when he came back. So, you could have potentially two tight end number ones, and it like kind of worked out for New England, with Hernandez and Gronk. But cooler heads prevailed, I guess. But that was the kind of play, and he put up the kind of combine stats where it's like, that's hard to ignore. It's kind of like best player available, 25. And then the other big name at the combine was Anthony Richardson, who's putting up insane numbers. A lot of people comparing him to Cam Newton. They had the graphic where they put him up against Cam Newton, and it was like he's pretty much right there with Cam or exceeding Cam's stats. But it's like, what year? So Cam Newton came to the league in 2011 or 12? 2011. And then he was pretty much donezo by 2019, 2020. I don't know. Maybe not the best of comparisons. And then everyone was hounding on the fact that he completed like 53% of his passes at Florida, which put him at 111th in terms of rankings in the FBS. So everyone's like, screw Daniel Jones, draft Anthony Richardson. We'll see about that. We'll see. Time will tell. The other note that I had here was that the Patriots are not going to franchise tag cornerback Jonathan Jones, and he's set to hit the free agent market. So something to keep an eye on. I think he might be too pricey for us, to be frank. To be honest, I mean, if we're keeping Adoree Jackson, we don't need to make a huge signing at CB2. I think it's like, just get an average guy. You know, average to slightly above average, who's not going to cost you an arm and a leg. You know, me personally. So yeah, that's the Giants. We can quickly go through some life things. I don't have a whole lot here. I will say this. There was one, I guess, two funny things that really stuck out to me when it comes to life. It was Dr. Seuss week last week at my daughter's daycare at her school. And it means every day they had a different theme. So they had Fox and Socks Day, Wacky Wednesday, Oh, the Places You'll Go on Thursday, Cat in the Hat on Tuesday or something like that. And Show and Tell was on Friday. PJs and pancakes, although they don't serve pancakes. It's waffles, so it's kind of misleading. And so I was trying to find a Dr. Seuss book for my daughter to bring to school for Show and Tell. Turns out, I guess, we only have one Dr. Seuss book in the house, and it's Green Eggs and Ham. Decent book. There was another book that had the Cat in the Hat logo or emblem in the top right. And so I pulled it out, and it's Am I Your Mother? Which looks like a Dr. Seuss book, but is not Dr. Seuss. It is a book by P.D. Eastman. And I said, no, we can't bring it in. It's not Dr. Seuss. It has to be Dr. Seuss because it's his week, Dr. Seuss week. This is by P.D. Eastman. My daughter goes, well, when is it P.D. Eastman week? And I was like, oh, that sucks for P.D. Eastman. I don't know that he gets a week. So I thought that was pretty funny. She's becoming funnier. Every time I hang out with her, she's like, I don't know. She's definitely not getting it from me. I don't know if she's getting it from her mom, but maybe she's getting it at daycare. She's just getting like saying little funny things every week, which is pretty cool. So the last weekend we watched Lyle Lyle Crocodile, which the CGI is just like, I mean it's good at parts, but other parts just like this is tough to swallow. But it's like Shawn Mendes is the voice of the crocodile. That dude's got and I know this is like not a hot take, but he's got a pretty good voice. I don't remember reading Lyle Lyle Crocodile when I was a kid. I guess it came out way after I was a kid. But damn, he's got a voice. He can sing, but can't talk. Weird. We actually didn't finish the movie because we had to go to a birthday party. But Javier Bardem, dude, he's getting a little bit older, but can move like a motherfucker. I cannot believe this guy. The moves that he was putting on. I was thinking to myself, like, when I get to his age, no chance, no shot. I can't even move like that now. And I think let's take a look. Javier Bardem age. And I know age is just a number, folks. I get it. 54 years old. 12 years from now, I don't think I can pull off those dance moves. I can't even pull them off now. So yeah, birthday party. We went to a birthday party at the Princeton Play Space. I would say kudos to them for putting up decorations to make it look like it's not a hostage situation. You know, and I've been thinking a lot about what I said about that previous birthday party being at Bounce U and how it just looks like where hostages are kept. And that's not a knock on the parents, okay? I hope that didn't come across that way. But it's just, there's certain vibes, and you can't ignore the vibes. And I'm just talking about the vibes that I got. Not everyone gets those vibes. But it just felt like a hostage situation. And I'm not saying It's not a knock on the parents. But Princeton Play Space, better decorations, and it felt like we were on a TV set. I thought that was pretty cool. And they had the Little Mermaid there, which I thought was cool. Little Mermaid, who was I'll just say this, I'm a dirty old man. I'll just say that. You do the math. But Little Mermaid, whoa. I was like, this is a children's birthday party? Am I in the right space? Am I in the right spot? Play space. This is a kids play area, correct? But no, she was great. And she was handing out tiaras, and she was only there for like half an hour. I was like, what a gig. Just come in, make kids' dreams come true for half an hour, and then bolt. And of course, Brie was so nervous and shy that she like refused to do anything unless her friends kind of helped her out. Cried 4 times, which I thought was like, oh boy. And it's tough because other people, I'm kind of, I don't want to say I'm used to it, but I am kind of used to it, where it's like, if she's crying like that and I'm not seeing like open wounds or scars or, anything like that, it's probably okay. But other parents, like, they get really nervous. And I'm just like, well, let's just figure out what she has to say first before we go, filing complaints or lawsuits or calling the cops. And like every time she'd come over, I'd be like, oh, what's the matter? I treat it seriously. I'm not like trying to brush it off, but I'm just like, hey, what's going on? What's up? She's like, Emerson, I was playing with her and then she ran away. I'm like, okay, let me tell you a little thing about life. People are going to do that repeatedly to you. Yeah, I understand. It's tough to swallow when you're 4. But at the same time, I was like, come on now. You got to toughen up a little bit. There'll be times where she'll take she backed into the corner of the table, which I probably should have like bumpers or whatever, little cushiony rubber things on the corners of the table, but I don't. And she backed into it and like really hit it hard and like cried. And like it left a pretty serious mark on her leg. She cried less for that than she did with little simple bullshit, like what happened with her friend. And she did it 3 or 4 times. And it was just like, oh man, this is like, come on now. you can do this. So, it reminds me of when we went to Trader Joe's and she ended up standing in the shopping cart, or maybe it was Wegmans. We had a grocery store and she stands in the grocery cart. And I guess I wasn't not paying attention, but I was like half paying attention. And I turned my head and this woman was like, oh, like gasped and was like afraid. And I'm like, lady, she's not hanging off the side of the cart. Like this is not that situation. Like she's just standing in the shopping cart. She's okay. And, she gave me a dirty look and I was just like, all right, yeah, okay, sure. Why not? Put that on my plate. Let's put that in a nice little, neat little compartment about all my other guilt and shame and regret and insecurities. But that birthday party was cool. It was pretty cool. They had like pizza for the kids, but then they had like some Mexican stuff for the adults. And I could have eaten that whole tray. There was just a tray, the fork, and it's like at some point, like I'm supposed to be neat about this and try and pick it up, but you start to panic, that panic move where it's like, oh, I don't want to take up too much time at this tray and struggling with the food. Do you ever get that sensation or feeling where like you're trying to get food out of a tray or you're in a buffet line and you're just struggling for whatever reason? Utensils suck. The food is not exactly easy to retrieve, anything like that. I started getting like a shot clock the pitch clock starts going, the shot clock in my head, internal shot clock, then internal game clock, pitch clock starts winding down. And you start to panic a little bit. Ugh, worst feeling in the world. But they had some White Claws, so I was able to like even out a little bit. It just felt good. So that was the birthday party. I gave my daughter a sticker book, and that's all she did the next day. All she did, which is it's such a great present. Melissa and Doug sticker book. There's like 20, I want to say 20 some odd pages, 20 sheets of stickers. And that's all she did the next day. And we watched 2 new shows to the rotation, at least for me as a dad, Steve and Maggie and The Makery. And I have to say this about Steve and Maggie. Are you serious, dude? It's crazy. Like I thought Blippi was nuts. Like I remember the first time I watched Blippi and the kids were entranced. And I was just like, what? This guy? Outrageous costume. He's talking. It's like the way he talks is mind blowing. It's just he's like a giant child and like doesn't even know what to call things. And the kids are salivating. And then Steve and Maggie comes along. Although I will say this about Steve and Maggie. So if you're not familiar, Steve and Maggie, the dude Steve is just like a dude who wears a red t-shirt and blue jeans and has a goatee and a shaved head and like a shaved head, a crew cut shaved head. And I think he's British. And then Maggie is just like a puppet crow or raven that has the most annoying voice in the world. And the British dude, Steve, he just repeats himself 3 times in a row. Almost every line he has, he's like, "What is it? What is it? What is it?" And it's like, hey, Steve, heard you the first time, bro. Don't have to repeat yourself 2 times. But, more experienced child educators will say, the more you repeat yourself, the more rhythmic you get, the more the child absorbs the information. So it's like, I get it, but at the same time, oh my God, you're killing me here, Steve. And Maggie has the worst voice of all time. And my daughter loves it. And it took me a while to figure out what she was asking for, because she was asking for a long time. She kept on saying, I want to watch Mackie and Steve, Mackie and Steve, Mackie and Steve. And so I'm searching for Mackie and Steve. And I'm thinking to myself, the last time I heard the word Mackie was Mackie Sasser, the New York Mets backup catcher in 1990, who had problems throwing back to the pitcher, which ironically inspired the character Rube Baker in Major League 2. The more you know. Ba-ba-da-da. So Steve and Maggie, which she couldn't get enough of. And she would get scared at parts. And it was like this animation, like it's basically him in like a huge green screen set. Like there's no live action sets. It's all green screen sets. So it's just him and green screen sets and animations all around him. And the animations are crude at best. They make like, the pilot episode of Beavis and Butthead or South Park look like friggin' avant-garde, next level manga. But yeah. It's just, and she would get scared by some of the stuff. And I was just like, it's all right. It's not real, And in fact, Steve even mentions it several times throughout the Halloween special. But it's not real. It's not real. So the other show we watched was The Makery, which is on Peacock. And it gives me it's like a DIY craft show where they have a host named Brooke, who is fine. I will say that. I know we're not supposed to objectify women, but I call him how I see him. I see him how I call him. I call him how I see him. And she is an attractive lady. And she wears the same outfit. I mean, Steve does the same thing, but she wears the same outfit. And what they do is they have these, each episode, like if you binge this series, it can drive you a little nuts. Because like they basically shoot something once and then they reuse it every episode. And they multiple segments. So like each segment, they have like, I want to say 3 or 4 sections or segments in each show. And so they'll shoot something and then they'll replay it at the beginning of each segment or section. And I notice it every time and it drives me nuts. But it's like, so in my head, I'm thinking, oh, whoa. Like in terms of production, I'm thinking, okay, so they had to have shot like this entire season in like a month or a week, because so much can change for the host over the course of like more than a month or a year. It's like, you can't like gain or lose too much weight. You can't like, get a teardrop tattoo below your eye, stuff like that goes through my head. It's just like, just fucking turn off your brain and enjoy the goddamn program. But I thought that was cool. It gave me like Pee-wee's Clubhouse vibes. Like there's a lot of like inanimate objects that have faces and that talk. But I also thought like at least Pee-wee had like the Schwami, like the genie in the box, the genie head in the box. And he had like what's his name from the Matrix? Morpheus. Oh my God. Forgot his name. But he was like a cowboy, and I think there might have been a mailman. Like there were other people that would come and visit him. In the Makery, this Brooke chick has 0 people. There are no other people. As far like I don't know if it's like the season finale, they unveil another person, but like it's just her in this place. I think she lives there because there's like she does her laundry there. So I think she lives there, and it's like there's no other people. And she's just talking to like the building. The building apparently is self-aware and like and autonomous. That's scary. And she just keeps talking to like this huge like megaphone thing that comes out of nowhere, and then it's like retreats. And then there's these 2 little crochet like alien type creatures in like some kind of closet or crawl space. It's just like, let's get her. And I know you probably have a budget, and I know you probably blew all your budget on that set, and that's why you had to reuse the footage, because you're really trying to, tighten the belt. But let's get Brooke like a friend that's a human or something. Because like I can imagine her going off the deep end very quickly, being in a house by her alone, talking to like a friggin' weird megaphone thing. So Brooke, let me know if you need help at the Makery. I had a Zoom with the divorce lawyers last week as well, which was exciting and fun. I like when lawyers are like, we're not accountants. And I'm like, oh, really? Oh, you're not an accountant? I could have sworn I saw CPA after your name. Oh, that says JD. Oh, I'm illiterate. I'm so sorry. Esquire. I thought Esquire meant like accounting Esquire. I just, this has been like I was officially divorced in June, like mid to late June. And a lot of this stuff was supposed to be tied up and put to bed like by September. And we're now in March of the following year. So I cannot recommend against divorce any harder, because it friggin' sucks. And it's just dragging on and on and on. And then I watch other divorces like Tom Brady. Like I get it. Tom Brady, Bill Gates, they're in another stratosphere. I'm not like sniffing them in terms of status, wealth, whatever. I get it. Their divorces were done in like a week. And it's like, you don't hear about it again. And now it's like, I'm going on month, I don't know what, 7, 8. And I just can't get like this simple account split divided equally. That it's like, I know it's not a lot of money, relatively speaking, comparatively, but like, we agreed on it, and it's in this contract that apparently does not hold up. This agreement is like, I like the lawyers are like, we put this in the agreement, but like, that's not what it is. And it's like, well then, why did we put that in the agreement if that's not the case, and we know that's not going to be the case? Like, is this your first case? Lawyers, dude. To think that it was a major reason why I didn't want to become a lawyer for a long time, because like I just kept hearing all these stand-up comedy jokes about them. And I also heard about like the general consensus was like lawyers or whatever. And so I was like, oh, I can't be that. And I made a lot of poor decisions based on that. It's just like, well, lawyers are like this and bankers are like this. And it is like all negative stuff that comes with every job. And so I was like, well, I can't be that. I don't want people talking shit about me because of that. And then it's like, well, you're probably better off being a lawyer at this point. And they were like, we suggest you get an accountant. And I was like, why didn't you guys say this like month one? Oh, because you wanted to drag this out and get more money each month? That makes sense. Yep. So that's life. Oh, one more thing. Today at work. So I went to the gym because we have a gym in the office. No big deal. And I forgot my wallet, but I had already come out the glass doors that separate the elevator bank from the cubicles. And I was like, I touched my pocket and I was like, I forgot my wallet. And then I turned. So I had already gone down in the elevator and I had to go back up. And then, I realized, I can't, my key card is in my wallet. So I can't get into the gym. And now I can't get back past this glass partition to my desk. And so I stood there like a fool. And I was looking, and I was like, I don't want to knock, like, because if I knock on the glass, I can't do a little knock. I just can't do a little. I can't do that. I have to like knock hard, and I'm gonna startle these people that are hard at work. I can see this one person's on a conference call, a Zoom, and the other person's on a Zoom. Like people are like got their headphones on, so like I'd have to knock pretty hard. I'm just gonna stand here and wait till someone walks by. And sure enough, a woman walks by. Now, I've walked by this woman, like her desk is by the men's restroom. So I've for sure walked by this woman sitting at her desk so many times because I've gone to the restroom so many times. And yeah, maybe she doesn't look up and notice me or whatever. But on this day in particular, I remember walking by her as she's standing talking to a group of people, and I had to walk through the group of people to go to the men's restroom. She saw me. So she walks by and she sees me and she kind of like does a little jump scare type thing, little whoa, when she sees me. And so she opens, as she's opening the door, I'm about to say, thank you, I'm sorry, like I forgot my wallet. And as I'm trying to say that, she goes, you're not going to murder us, right? You're not going to murder us, right? And I thought to myself, well, I wasn't. But now that you mention it, fuck, dude. I look like a murderer. Like I just look like a murderer. And that makes a lot of sense. And it confirms a lot of my suspicions and fears and doubts. Like I just look like a murderer. It's why I just, people don't approach me more times than not. Because I just look like a murderer. I look like a murderer for a living. So yeah, that was cool. You're not going to murder us, right? It's just like, like I've never talked to this woman. And I get it. Hey, from the women's point of view, the women's perspective, every man is a threat. I get that. Especially bigger men who have resting bitch face like myself. I get that. But goddamn, the first words that you're ever going to say to me ever are you're not going to murder us, right? Come on. You got to make me, I would understand if we had a bunch of conversations and maybe, and maybe I did have a weird look on my face, but it was because I was pissed at myself for forgetting the wallet. People don't realize how pissed I am at myself at all times. It is nonstop. So if anyone else decides to like pig pile and dog pile on top of that, that just sends me through the roof. And if I could hear you yelling back at me, I would hear you saying, you can't take a joke. You can't take a joke. Can't take a joke. No, I can't. I'm a sensitive soul. So yeah, that was life. Let's talk about Triangle of Sadness. Triangle of Sadness. This is a comedy written and directed by Ruben Östlund. Östlund. Östlund, and the O has like the two little dots over it. So Östlund. I don't know, dude. Triangle of Sadness. So this has been nominated, I believe, for Best Picture at the Academy Awards, which are on the 12th. So I figured, let's give this a look-see. At first blush, I was like, I I hear the title and I'm like, oh man, that sounds like some fucking 4-hour drama where it's gonna like maybe save it for your mama type of thing. And instead, I'm happy that I decided to watch it. It is available for streaming for free on Hulu if you have a subscription. I don't know that I would have paid to rent this if it was like full price. Maybe not. But I was glad to see that it was available for streaming on Hulu if you have a subscription. So here's the synopsis if you're not familiar. In Ruben Östlund's wickedly funny Palme d'Or winner, social hierarchy is turned upside down, revealing the tawdry relationship between power and beauty. Celebrity model couple Carl, played by Harris Dickinson, and Yaya, played by Charlie Dean, rest in power, are invited on a luxury cruise for the uber rich, helmed by an unhinged boat captain, played by Woody Harrelson. Fuck yeah. What first appeared Instagrammable ends catastrophically. Butchered that. Leaving the survivors stranded on a desert island and fighting for survival. Rated R for some sexual content and language. If you're not familiar with Ruben Östlund, he directed 2017's The Square, starring Elizabeth Moss, which was about a prestigious Stockholm museum's chief art curator finding himself in times of both professional and personal crisis as he attempts to set up a controversial new exhibit, and Force Majeure, which came out in 2014, about a family vacationing in the French Alps that's confronted with a devastating avalanche. That movie, if it sounds familiar, was remade in America as Downhill, starring Will Ferrell and Julia Louis-Dreyfus, which I have not seen, but everyone has said that it sucks. But, you know, the critics can be finicky like that. So maybe, I don't know, maybe I'll watch both back to back and we'll compare and contrast, okay? This was released, had a limited release on October 7th, 2022, and then it released on streaming November 22nd. Premiered at the Cannes Film Festival right around Memorial Day of 2022. And as we mentioned, it won the festival's Palme d'Or. And it received an 8-minute standing ovation at the Cannes Film Festival, which I'm sorry. I don't care if there's video, proof, evidence. I refuse to believe it. I refuse to believe that anyone can stand and clap for more than 2 minutes at a time. Sorry, I call bullshit. Every time I've seen that, every time I hear that, I go, nope, fake news. I've tried, like, we did it over the summer. Like, when we heard, I think it was Brendan Fraser. After Brendan Fraser got a standing ovation for, I don't know, or maybe it was Ana de Armas got a standing ovation that was like 13 minutes. I think Brendan Fraser got one that was like 13 minutes. And it's just like, all right, let's just try and recreate it. Let's just put on the timer. And we'll say we're gonna clap for as long as we can before we get tired. And I'll tell you what, your hands go numb. Your hand, I don't know, unless you're doing like a very. I think maybe I could do that for 8 minutes. I don't know that I can do more than that for 8 minutes. Like, if you really clapping, your hands go numb, and eventually I think they start to bleed. As I mentioned, this movie received 3 nominations at the 95th Annual Academy Awards. Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Original Screenplay. And yeah, all valid after seeing this movie. Fuck yeah. The box office gross was only $4.5 million. It does have a fairly lengthy runtime, 2.5 hours. It was distributed by Neon, had a budget of around $16 million in the box office. I guess this is global box office, pulled in $24 million. So it made back some money and then some. And maybe it'll make some buku dollars in home video rentals and whatnot, streaming. The cast: Harris Dickinson, as we mentioned, as Carl, Charlie Dean as Yaya, Dali De Leon as Abigail, so good. Zlatko Buric as Dimitri, also awesome performance. I will say, before we get to the rest of the cast, the Carl and Yaya opening section, somewhat rough. I guess if you're a little, it might test your patience a little bit, but if you can get through that, you are handsomely rewarded. Pun intended, because they're models and I just said handsome. Iris Berben as Therese. Vicky Berlin as Paula, who I mean, all the characters pretty much were so great in terms of just look, style, feel, depth, just like awesome. Henrik Dorson as Yarmo, Jean-Christophe Folly as Nelson, Amanda Walker as Clementine, Oliver Ford Davies as Winston, Sonny Mellis as Vera, and Woody, my man, Harrelson as the captain. In such a great performance. I have to say this. If Woody Harrelson isn't in this movie, I'm not sure that I watch it. Like when I was first kind of checking it out, someone had mentioned it and I'd seen it and I was like, I'm not too familiar with this. And I did, kind of Rotten Tomatoes, Wikipedia, whatever. And I see like, what is this? And then I see Woody Harrelson. And I was like, all right, okay. So kudos to them for casting him. So the plot. So the story is broken into 3 parts. The first part is Carl and Yaya, as I mentioned. The second part is the yacht, and then the third part, Spoala, is the island. The Carl and Yaya, the first part. So Carl and Yaya are dating. Carl's a model. I guess Yaya looks like a model, but is more of an influencer. Or yeah, she's a model and influencer. And so they're dating, and Carl resents Yaya for expecting him to pay for meals, even though she earns more than he does. They often bicker about money and gender roles. Yaya admits that she is in a relationship with Carl for the engagement it earns them in social media, and that she seeks to become a trophy wife, but Carl declares that she will come to love him. A lot of emotions. Like, even though that section, that part runs a bit long, it does make you feel things. I'll say that, because it is like the guy is expected to pay, even though the guy's earning less. But we do find out the reason why Yaya is not paying is because her card keeps getting turned down and rejected. So it's like, even though she's making more, she's spending more possibly, and to the point where she's reckless with her money. And that would explain why, she wants to be a trophy wife, because she's like on her own, not able to provide for her lifestyle. But that did make me, that scene with the bill made me uncomfortable. It did make me feel things. And it is interesting how that whole relationship ended up panning out, which we'll get to in a little bit. But part 2 is the yacht. Carl and Yaya are invited on a luxury cruise aboard a super yacht in exchange for social media promotion. And one of the I know I say a lot of things, but like, I can't picture myself being in that kind of relationship, no matter how hot the woman is, where it's like you are just constantly. Well, I say that now, but like, maybe I would trade for that, especially when the dude's also a model. It's like, but I feel like that would get old quick, where it's like you're constantly having to take pictures of your girlfriend. Like, and even that, like, how is influencers and social media it's just I'm so close to deleting everything. I really, 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 really want to, but it's also, I feel like social media is my only avenue to possibly advancing and moving beyond where I'm at. So it's like a necessary evil. It's like, I know what I have to do and how to use social media. I just refuse to do it because it feels gross. For instance, they're at the dinner table or the lunch table or whatever, and Yaya is holding up a fork with like a spaghetti all dripped down. She's like opening her mouth like, and doing something like that. And Carl takes the picture, and then she puts it down and pushes the plate away. And Dimitri's like, you're not going to eat the pasta? And she's like, what? And she's like, you're not going to eat the pasta? She's like, no, it's just for the Instagram. She's like, I'm gluten intolerant. He's like, oh, okay. And so that's how they start to hit it off. And that's how we find out that Dimitri is the king of shit. The king of shit. So among the wealthy guests are the Russian oligarch. I don't know how to pronounce that shit. Oligarch. Yeah. Dimitri and his wife, Vera. But then there's a girlfriend too, right? I did not understand that dynamic at all. I mean, I guess I do understand it, but it would have been nice to get a little confirmation, because it's like, okay, it's, for me, it looks like this is your wife and then this is your mistress, and the wife is okay with the mistress because you're rich. Got it. Okay. Elderly couple Clementine and Winston, who manufacture weapons, which I thought was a interesting, nice twist, where it's like this sweetest, nicest old couple who appear to be very much still in love. And they're talking about like how they make grenades and missiles and all that stuff. Therese, who wheelchair user, only capable of speaking a single sentence in German following a stroke, which I think it was like in the Vulcan, in the nine in the Vulcan, which is no up in the clouds, I believe. Which that would have also been nice. I don't know that they ever explained that. I guess the husband, because remember when we first meet Therese, she's at the table by herself in the wheelchair, like her husband's in the crapper or whatever in the restroom, and Clementine and Winston are on the other side, and they're trying to talk to Therese, and Therese is just like, she's like getting very apprehensive because she knows, like, I can understand you, but you will not understand me because I can only say 9 in the Vulcan. So, does the husband come back from the restroom and then explain it? He explains like, oh, she had a stroke. She can only say these words, but we never find out why those words, I guess. Maybe I missed it, but I don't think there was any confirmation of like, oh, the reason why she's saying up in the clouds is because blah, blah, blah. Yarmo, who's a lonely tech millionaire who flirts with Yaya. So one of the parts, so this is very interesting because they have the passengers, right? The guests, all of which are super wealthy and rich. And then you have the staff or the crew led by Paula, and Paula has like the group meeting, the staff meeting, crew meeting, is like, hey, whatever these guests want, you say yes. We don't say no ever. And why do we say yes? And then you start chanting money. And then you kind of, I think from there you go down a level and you start to see like the custodial staff, some of the ones that are not so much customer facing crew and staff, that are like janitorial, cleaning staff, engine room, the people that are kind of like, they try to hide, and they're like not as visible and customer facing. So then we have, I guess Vera, the wife, gets one of the crew members to agree to go swimming. And then before you know it, it's like the guests want the entire staff and crew to go swimming, even the kitchen staff. And so the head chef is like, the food's going to go bad, but okay, cool. And so they all go swimming. And then that's when you have the captain's dinner, which up to this point in the movie, Woody Harrelson is kind of holed up in his cabin in his bedroom and refusing to come out. And it's obvious that he's doing some shady shit in there, possibly drinking drugs. We don't know. And because Paula keeps coming and knocking on the door. But so the captain, Woody Harrelson's character is named Thomas Smith. And so Paula is able to get the first mate, I forget what his name is, to come and get Thomas out of his cabin, sober up, and attend the captain's dinner. And while the captain's dinner is going on, there's a storm. And I gotta tell you, this sequence, this scene, the captain's dinner, definitely one of the best scenes of, I'll say 2022, because it came out in 2022, even though I saw it this year. Like, one of the best scenes I've seen in a long time. Like, they're going through a storm, so the boat is rocking big time. Like, things are falling, smashing, glass. Combine that with the fact that, the sound effects that they use during this dinner, where it's like very like fancy items, but mostly seafood. And so you have a lot of oysters and clams, and they have them, you can hear them slurping. And the way it's shot and the sound effects that they use, it's almost gross and disgusting. Like, it's almost like they're setting the tone. And it's almost as if they're saying, you think this is gross and disgusting? Hold my beer. Or in this case, hold my bottle of Veuve Click. I guess that's it. Veuve is not even like considered classy or expensive for these people. Ace of Spades. Does that fit the bill? I don't know. Hold my Ace of Spades. But because of the violent nature of the rocking of the boat, the turbulence and the turmoil, combined with the fact that the food spoiled, as the head chef said when he's like, they want us all to come swimming, well, then the food's going to go bad. And they're like, all right, let's go. And so, it starts off slow, where it's like one person kind of starts feeling seasick, and they're like, I think I'm seasick. And then that person starts vomiting, and then another person starts vomiting, and people are stumbling and falling and vomiting all over the place. All over the place. It was so goddamn funny. Violently seasick, vomit, diarrhea, the food, panic everywhere. People are now putting on like life vests because the boat is rocking so hard. And you have the one scene of Vera, who is now in her like Spanx, like she's all dressed, like stripped down. Like, you see the one guy, I forget who it was completely naked on the toilet, who's like on the toilet but also vomiting, which reminds me of my first ex-girlfriend, whose birthday it is today, who got dysentery. Isn't that where it's coming out both ends? She got it on a boat. So interesting how that all ties together. Wow. And then that's when Thomas, Woody Harrelson's character, the captain, he ordered a cheeseburger. And I guess because he ordered a cheeseburger and it's not raw because they cook it right, that I guess he did not get seasick. I don't know what Dimitri had. I can't remember Dimitri had. I guess he just drank. I don't think he ate. But most everyone else had raw seafood, so they were like puking and shitting everywhere. So funny. And so Woody Harrelson and Dimitri, who made his fortune in fertilizer, that's why he calls himself the king of shit, they get into a debate over communism versus capitalism. And the twist here is that Woody Harrelson's character, who's American, is a self-proclaimed Marxist who keeps quoting all these, has these quotes about communism. And then you have Dimitri, who's a Russian oligarch, but who loves capitalism and is making all these quotes about capitalism. He's quoting Ronald Reagan, and Woody Harrelson's quoting Marx and Lenin and all that stuff. And so they go like, they just have like an old fashioned, and man, do I miss moments like that with friends where it's like one-on-one, and like there's no reason to be drinking, and you just keep going shot for shot or taking slugs or whatever, playing stupid drinking games one-on-one to the wee hours of the morning for no reason at all. So him and Thomas and Dimitri are doing that, debating communism versus capitalism, and they get a hold of the intercom, and that is like the climax of the scene. Like the peak of the scene is them, like Dimitri, like, oh, we're all going to die. You're all going to die, and just saying that into the intercom, drunk as fuck, as everyone's just slipping and sloshing in their own filth, like, vomit and diarrhea and whatnot. Like the sewage comes up through the toilets, power goes out. Like it's disgusting, But at no point did I feel the need to puke or like vomit like I did during Cocaine Bear. Again, I mentioned Cocaine Bear. Oh my God. It was just like comical, just super funny shit. But yeah, that scene was just priceless. So good. And, Woody Harrelson tells Dimitri that he wrote a book. And so he's like reading excerpts from the book, and Dimitri gets the intercom, puts it in, and he's like, no, you gotta tell the people. And so apparently, as Woody Harrelson's reading, it goes out over the intercom, but it goes out the loudspeakers, the speakers on the boat, and that's when they pull back and you see like these pirates that take notice and are about to attack the boat. And so the pirates end up tossing a grenade onto the cruise ship, and Clementine picks it up and turns to Winston and goes, "Is this one of ours?" And Wilson's like, "No," and then so the grenade goes off, blows up half the boat, sinks it, and then that takes us to part 3, the island. And this is where it gets interesting. This is where a character who we are not fully, who's kind of been, I guess we've seen flashes of here and there, takes on a more prominent role in the movie, Abigail. And I guess she was head cleaning lady, right? She headed up the cleaning staff. So there's a group of survivors, right? Clementine Wilson, they didn't make it. And then a bunch of other people didn't make it. And the survivors were Carl, Yaya, the models and the influencer, Dimitri, the Russian oligarch, Therese, the lady in the Vulcan, in the wheelchair, Paula, who's like the head of the, I guess, customer guest relations staff, Yarmo, the tech millionaire, ship mechanic. Oh, the ship mechanic Nelson. That makes sense. Dimitri accuses him of being one of the pirates, which Nelson says, well, you're racist. You're saying that because I'm black. That's why you're saying one of the pirates. And it's like, part is you like, because Dimitri gets a lot of screen time in part 2. And it's like, you never see Nelson. Like, we never saw Nelson until just now. But it's like, maybe we did, and we just didn't notice because he didn't have any dialogue or a lot of screen time. And so, like, literally the definition of being marginalized, like marginalization. So it was like, that's racist, but also kind of understandable because, like, we didn't really see a lot of Nelson. I didn't even know Nelson existed. And then cleaning lady Abigail, they managed to escape to the island. Paula continues to order Abigail, but then when push comes to shove and it comes to survival skills, Abigail is the one who keeps catching the fish, and she's the only one who knows how to do anything, like cleaning the octopus, making a fire. Like, no one else has to do this because they've all lived a privileged life, first-class life, including Paula, which I thought was interesting. So she automatically assumes power. She becomes the ruler because she's like, without me, you guys are fucked. Like, you're not going to survive. And so Abigail ends up, so there's a lifeboat. And so she sleeps in the lifeboat, and she's like, she determines who can sleep with her in the lifeboat because it's nicer. You like, especially if it rains or if it storms, like, you're in a nice protected environment, shelter. Eventually she gets into a sexual relationship with our guy Carl, which I've, in exchange for food. So what was interesting about that is, like, Carl, remember back to part 1, Carl and Yaya are arguing about money and bickering about money, and Carl didn't like the idea that the strain of their finances was placed on him, even though he earns less. And so I think ultimately what happens here, when Carl initially is like, he goes to Yaya and is like, listen, it's nothing. I'm not going to do anything with her. I'm just going to sleep in the same lifeboat, and I'm not even going to kiss her. Like, I'm not going to do any of that. I wouldn't do that to you. And then we see that he ends up, like, they full blown, Well, although the one scene that we do, quote unquote, sex scene we see with them, I don't think they're having sex. It seems like a mutual masturbation type of thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just seems like you get yours, I get mine. Like, we're affecting each other, but it's not full. Yeah. And so Yaya gets jealous and ends up kissing Yarmo as a response, as retaliation, I guess. But it is, I think it's just, and Abigail, if you haven't seen it, like the cleaning lady is she's on the older side. She's not Yaya's age and she's not a model. So to give you kind of a context as to what is going on here. And so I think that's really just Carl's drawn to power and influence and skill. And so maybe that makes it easier for him to turn his back on Yaya and embrace Abigail, because he's not drawn to like this Yaya's lifestyle and Yaya's, I guess, superficiality. That was, I mean, that goes back to the opening, like the scene where they have the argument in the Uber, Carl and Yaya, and then they're in the hotel and Carl's trying to explain to her, like, it's not about the money. And Yaya just keeps smiling and giggling, and like that would also drive me nuts. Cause like I'm trying to have a serious conversation here and just keep laughing in my face. And then when he's in his bed and she comes in and she's like, this relationship is strictly business. It's just, there's like, we're dating each other because of Instagram. It's just like, and I'm going to be a trophy wife. And he's like, I'm going to make you love me. And it's just like, and I guess, spoiler, I guess he does kind of make that happen, oddly enough, by his relationship with Abigail, because then you can see that Yaya is affected by it. Like, it does bother her. Because when they first get on the cruise and they're laying on the Shea Lounge and that crew member comes on and like disrobes for some reason, like just takes off his jumper, and he's so hairy and he's got a man bun. And I'm thinking to myself, come on, Carl, dude. Like, you're a model and this guy's like a crew member and he's just super hairy. Like, I'm super hairy. That's not that's not hot. It's not sexy. And Yaya found it hot and sexy. And I was just like, I don't know what am I doing? So Yaya eventually decides to take a hike to the other side of the island, and Abigail volunteers to go with her, even though Carl's like, don't do it. And that's where they talk things out. And it seems like, Yaya compliments Abigail for establishing a matriarchy. And it's like, okay, maybe things are going to turn out for the best. And then that's when they discover that they stumble upon like a beachside elevator and realize they've been stranded at they're near a luxury resort, which we got a taste of because Teresa, who normally is wheelchair bound, is now like she's just kind of stuck in this like inflatable raft and just has to sit there. And there's like a I don't know what you call it, merchant, vendor, a guy just selling things, like selling hats and trinkets and whatnot. A guy just kind of strolls the beach and sells stuff like that. And so she flags him down and he comes up and he's like trying to sell her stuff. And she just can only say 9 in the Vulcan. And so he takes off. And so Yaya is celebrating, and she starts talking about like, oh, things can go back to the way they were. The way they were. I can go back to my job as a model. You can go back to being, basically saying you can go back to your life as a lowly cleaning lady. Whereas I go back to the lap of luxury, and I don't have to depend on you, and essentially all your power is gone. And so then that's when it slowly hits Abigail, like, I can't let this happen. Like, this friggin' sucks. Like, I can't go back to that. Like, here I'm a ruler, I dominate, I have power. Back there, I don't. Like, I'm lower class, and I have to service all these asinine, ignorant people who are take advantage of me and don't appreciate, aren't grateful, et cetera, et cetera. And so she picks, like, Yaya sits down on the beach and is like finally relieved and like, oh, it's finally gonna go back to normal. And she has her back to Abigail, and Yaya is like, why don't you come work for me? You can be my assistant. And that's when Abigail has the rock as if she's about to attack Yaya. And once that line hits, like, you can work for me, you can be my assistant. That's like, they don't show it, but it's like she for sure took a rock to Yaya's dome. And then, that's when they cut to Carl frantically running through the jungle, running towards Yaya and Abigail on the beach. So great ending, just a good movie. I mean, there's a stretch where it's like, where is this going exactly? Not entirely sure. But ultimately, I'm just really pleasantly surprised. I mean, the opening scene where it's Carl at the audition, the model audition or whatever, and it's like all these like very skinny looking dudes. And you have the one guy so there's a cameraman, and then there's like a host with a tiny microphone. He's going around like interviewing all the male models. And then this was in the trailer too, but I just thought it was hilarious where it's like they have them all standing together, their shirts off and in jeans. And he's like, all right, now Balenciaga. Well, I don't even know how to fucking say it. Balenciaga? Balenciaga. How do I pronounce Balenciaga? How to pronounce Balenciaga? Balenciaga. Yeah, Balenciaga. And so they all become very like tough looking and depressed and sad and kind of like, steely eyed and brooding. And then he says H&M, and they all become like super like joyous and happy and laughing. And, they just flips back and forth between the two. That was like that at that point when I saw that, I was like, all right, I think I'm going to be nice and happy with this one. So let's look at some trivia. Charlie Dean, who played Yaya, this was crazy. I didn't learn this until I looked at the trivia after, preparing this review. She unexpectedly died shortly after the film's release. No cause of death was released, but she succumbed to a lung infection. I guess she had lost her spleen years before in a car accident. She was only 32, which is crazy. I did notice in that one scene where they first are on the cruise ship when they first arrive and they're on the Shea Lounge, you could see a scar on her abdomen, and I thought they were going to explain that at some point, like, and that's where you would get like sympathy for her, like, oh, like maybe this would explain why she behaves the way she does. They never do, but it's the result of her splenectomy, which took place in 2009. So, very sad, but. So the yacht scenes were shot on the Christina O, which is the former yacht of the Onassis family, as in Jackie Kennedy Onassis. Ever heard? They only took 9 days to shoot on it, cost a lot of money, and the shoot ended the day before another lockdown from COVID-19 came to effect. The director, Ruben Östlund, admits that if it happened a few days earlier, he doesn't know how they would have managed to finish the movie, which is crazy. Timing, dude. It's, sliding doors, right? The character Dmitry is modeled after Dmitry Rybolovlev. Oh boy. Rybolovlev. Oh, holler. A Russian oligarch who likewise made his fortune with fertilizer. He owns a super yacht and become world famous as the vendor of Da Vinci's Salvator Mundi in 2017 at a profit of an estimated $273 million. I like art. I can't imagine paying that much for a piece of art. I like for the stories. For the gram, it just doesn't seem worth it. But I'm not a zillionaire. So there you have it. In a 2022 interview with Vanity Fair, Ruben Östlund, the director, described his intent and defined the traditional approach to class characterizations. One idea I had was that I wanted to portray them all as nice. I didn't want to make them ignorant or mean, because I think that is maybe the conventional way we look at class. When we describe people on the bottom, they're genuine and generous. The rich people are egotistic and superficial. Didn't want to go down that road. And for the most part, he's correct, right? Like, I don't think anyone was really mean. I think they were just, if anything, unintentionally mean. Like, you know, not being more socially aware, more self-aware, because when you're that rich, people are just yesing you up and down, left and right. You know, they just do what you say because you have money, and they don't want to lose that possibility of getting some of that money. So that was understandable. I thought that, it's a great approach to take. The polite English couple who turn out to be arms dealers are called Winston and Clementine, the names of Winston Churchill and his wife Clementine Churchill. Oh. Dali de Leon, who plays Abigail, confirmed in interviews that Abigail did in fact kill Yaya with the rock at the conclusion, which I didn't. There was honestly no doubt in my mind. Seeing the expression on her face and the way she was gripping it, I was like, I don't know what it would take other than Carl saving Yaya at the last second, tackling Abigail like that. She was taking her down. There was no doubt in my mind. So the Triangle of Sadness, they mentioned it in the part one, like the opening scene where Carl's going through the modeling audition. Where they I think they mentioned the Triangle of Sadness in that opening scene. I was just like, I was like, huh? The title refers to the little space between the eyebrows where frown lines are often formed, also known as the glabella. However, it could also apply to the love triangle that springs up between Yaya, Abigail, and Carl. Oh, okay. It could also refer to the three acts of the movie: Yaya and Carl, the yacht, and the island. So I dig that. And that ties everything nicely together. That carpet really tied the room together. What do the critics say? On Metacritic, the film had a weighted average score of 63 out of 100 based on 47 critics. Generally favorable reviews. On Rotten Tomatoes, 72% of critics, all critics, gave it a favorable review, which means 3.5 out of 5 stars. And they had an average rating of 7.2 out of 10. The top critics were not as generous. 59% of top critics gave it a favorable review with an average rating of 7 out of 10. Woof. What's up with those top critics? I don't know. It's so stuffy, dude. I view most top critics as like 1%ers, so I could see how they'd be upset with how this takes down the 1%ers. Or, yeah. I would say, yeah. I would go higher than that a little bit. I'd go towards all critics. I'd give it like a 7.3, 7.4. I might have did I give it an 8 on IMDb? Between a 7 and an 8, I'd say on IMDb. I think that's where I'd put it. The critics' consensus is that Triangle of Sadness lacks the sharp edges of Östlund's earlier work, but this blackly humorous swipe at the obscenely affluent has its own rewards. Sharp edges. I gotta look. I mean, I haven't watched a lot of his other movies, so maybe I would need to watch those to get a better understanding of what they mean by sharp edges. But I mean, you could see, when there's that big debate about capitalism versus communism. On the yacht, that's capitalism. On the island, that's communism. And you can see capitalism, there's a bit more, there are vices going on. There's a little more greed going on. There's excess. There's sin, right? Quote unquote sin. If you're going based from a religious standpoint, sloth and greed and opulence and extravagance and all that stuff, and how that causes discord between the three levels, right? It's like the super rich, the crew, that kind of the trickle down effect of the crew wanting the money, and then the janitorial staff that's like, this is like, we're just trying to live. And then versus the communism where it's like everyone's on equal, even playing ground. But when given a choice, it's like I think most of those people prefer the capitalism. Audience, 70% of the audience gave it favorable reviews with an average rating of 3.6 out of 5. And I would put it, between 3.5 and 4, I'd say, closer to 4. The audience says, with an intriguing premise held back by an uneven execution, Triangle of Sadness has some sharp points as well as some lopsided angles. The friggin' puns on these people, dude. The puns, unbelievable. Uneven execution, lopsided angles. Okay. I could see that. 2.5 hours, very long runtime. They spent a hell of a lot of time with Carl and Yaya, and then it kind of gets away from Carl and Yaya for a lengthy period of time. So I think if you have like a do-over, or to like win over whatever naysayers or haters that are in the mix, maybe you would introduce maybe some more backstory with some of the other characters and not so much emphasis on Carl and Yaya. Yeah. I don't know. But that's it's Triangle of Sadness. I recommend it, dude. I think it's a good watch. It is a little on the long side, but I mean that one Captain's Dinner scene alone really made it for me. And the island, it really again, that might have been a little bit drawn out as well, but it was to make a bunch of points. Like you could see, like you have people of enormous wealth that are working hand in hand with people that have little to no wealth, and how the roles are reversed and the tables are turned. Is it shitting on capitalism? I guess, but it's also taking some jabs at communism. I mean, like when they're on the island, as much as we applaud Abigail for taking power and ruling, there is a certain degree of dictatorship there, right? Because it's like they're withholding. It gets to her head a little bit, withholding food, using sex to deliver food, that kind of thing. So I don't think it's really one over the other, I'd say, but I enjoyed it. More laughs than Cocaine Bear. Okay, that's enough. Thank you so much for listening and for watching. I appreciate all your time, energy, effort, and we'll talk to you next week. Adios, muchachos.